So the hotel industry is going to be watching out. Pockets like jewelry, textiles, all of these, smaller pockets of stocks will be keeping a very, very close eye on the budget. So from a market perspective, it's not just the big picture, it's also for the broader markets and really where we could see some of that action. And key to track will be defense, will be rail. These are the pockets that have actually been moving ahead of the budget. So maybe not on the index, but in terms of a build-up, we've definitely been seeing it across some of these key pockets. All right, opening bell on your screens. Actually, what are we picking up on opening bell?
25,312. I mean, we've quickly slipped into the red, Abha, as far as the Nifty is concerned, just toggling at the flat line at this point in time. Let's also pull up the Nifty Bank there to see if there is any action on the banking space. Again, flat with a negative bias. So there is nervousness right ahead of the budget speech today, viewers. That's how are you looking at. But private banks, about 0.2% higher, giving us some hope that there could be something for the financial sector, something but PSU banks are down by 1.3%. There was a big expectation that something on the mergers consolidation front could be announced there. Broader markets taking a hit, 0.7% down for the mid-cap 100 index. Look at the small caps, even further down, 1.1% lower. So the larger mood, the broader market sell-off is pointing out to some nervousness. India WIX, the volatility index that tracks the greed and the fear in the markets, that's up by 3.9%, clearly indicating to a lot of nervousness on the D Street. Metals index, looking at and mirroring the gold and silver fall. It's again 4% down. What Shell was pointing out, on Friday, we had a massive 5% fall there. And the stocks that have been tracking, copper, silver, all of those stocks are down in double digits, about 15.5% lower for Hind Copper. Look at also in zinc at this point in time, a 10% lower circuit for Hindustan Zinc at 565. So all those gains that we've got in the last 1 month, many of them are going away. Hindalco down by 5%. Shell, what else are you watching out for?
Well, Sakshi, the top 5 losers are either metal stocks or related metal spaces, including MCX, 10% lower at 2275. This is, of course, the global sell-off that we are seeing. Let me just point out some positivity. We've hit upon 5 top losers. Let's look at the gainers as well. Well, the complete defensive market comes into 4. Look at Sun Pharma, 3.5% higher. And Siddharth, a very good beginning for the NSC partnership. IFCI, which is a major holder of NSC stock, is up 10%. It's the top gainer. You have Escorts in the green, 2.5% higher. The Nifty Auto Index doing pretty well because we are looking for the auto numbers to come in. And of course, the likes of Zentech ahead of the defense budget, 2% higher. Insurance stocks are doing well. That's what at least I am looking at.
So I want to come to you, Siddharth, on something because, given a slight nervousness in the markets, but largely the budget has been priced in. So unless and until there's some kind of fillip to growth, there's no real particular downside as far as, Nirmala really disappoints. I mean, if she absolutely does nothing, not even any kind of surface level consumer-led incentives or something, that's really when we'll see the markets nosedive. But otherwise, I see a limited downside. What do you think?
About 3 factors to remember. Yeah. One, the Goldilocks movement that the Indian economy is going through, and our guests here would comment on that, but since we are focusing on the markets for the next few minutes, let me try and respond to that question that you made. Is there scope, necessity for tinkering around with further as far as our indirect tax architecture is concerned? Of course there is, but where will that happen? Outside of the budget. Is there necessity to look at further direct tax changes? Well, there could always be at the margins changing this, changing that. But remember, we are now in an environment where the government of India, the finance ministry, wants everyone to move to the new tax regime. No exemptions, lower thresholds of taxes to pay. And therefore, that is a policy direction that will continue. Therefore, what is left? It is customs tariffs. Now, customs tariffs used to take a lot of time in the budget speech. Dr. Baru would recall that it sometimes used to be 20, 30 minutes plus, including the days of Pranab Mukherjee as the finance minister. He brought that back when he came back to the finance ministry 2009 onwards. So effectively, the scope to tinker around with taxes and tariffs is limited to that extent. So what does it leave with? A statement of medium-term priorities, because remember, one of the criticisms of our budget-making process is you announce something on 1st February. By the time the first policy architecture is made, half of the next fiscal year is gone. And that is why implementation becomes an issue, and outcome budgets were supposed to fix that for us. So I would say, don't surprise anyone negatively. Continue down the path of fiscal consolidation and solid, factual, credible numbers.
Go ahead, please. Let me just mark the markets. Nifty Metals Index, Sakshi, is now down 4.5%. This comes after Friday's loss of 5.2%. In the red are the PSU Banking Index, 1.35% lower. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is very heavy profit booking, nothing much to be worried about. We had seen a very sharp rally in the metal prices as also in PSU Bank. So money is moving from the book into the bank. Small cap index is down 1.2%. And it's a very light start to the market, Siddharth. 1,057 shares in the green, 1,200 in the red. The market is light. It could pivot if there is something interesting on the tax side.
Well, we have seen pivots in the past that used to happen when Part B would start. But Chetan Bhutani, who tracks infrastructure for us, standing by at Vijay Chowk. Chetan, very quickly, give us a sense of what the continuing focus for capital expenditure will be. Will it be in line trend with what we have seen over the past few years, especially post-COVID, or should we expect a major change?
So that we would be seeing a normal minimal hike that has been continuing for the past 3 to 4 years. Nirmala Sitharaman knows that the infrastructure ministries are very capable of spending their money, and they have been spending quite regularly, and so they don't have much of the budget revenue left. So now we will expect normal 3 to 4% allocation for both roads and railways coming up. Not much highway spending would be done because the ministry is itself managing its own expenses, raising money from the markets, getting its highways listed and monetized. So these strategies have worked, and in case the ministry will not be taking too much money from the budget, but a significant 3 to 5% allocation for highways, 3 to 5% for railways, and port, shipping, waterways, telecom sector would see the minimal hike going forward. Secondly, Siddharth, what we know is, of course, the MSME sector. The government would be focusing on MSMEs and agriculture, with the government probably giving a very big announcement for the agriculture sector and in the name of the PM Kusum scheme and its subsequent continuation.
Absolutely. Dr. Baru, very quickly, deregulation is something that is echoing across the world. We have had a deregulation task force. Some policy changes have already happened, and Rajdeep and I both heard Chandrababu Naidu Garu in Davos tell us that it should no longer be about ease of doing business, it should also be about speed of doing business. Is deregulation likely to be a focus, and what would its merit be if at all it were to be announced today?
Well, clearly it has to be. You know, you spoke about Goldilocks moment, and this has become a popular phrase. I've never understood what exactly it means, because what we have, if you see the overall economic situation, is a fairly good record on fiscal stabilization. But demand has not been picking up. Demand continues to constrain capacity utilization, which is below 80% across the manufacturing sector. Private capital, has not been forthcoming. There's been a stagnant share of private capital formation to GDP. So what we really need is to trigger the animal spirits. I mean, Nirmala Sitharaman herself asked a year ago of Indian business, why are you guys not investing? And I think the answer lies with the government.
That's absolutely right, sir. In fact, Sakshi, just come in on the defense theme, because defense is one of the themes. And this question that Dr. Baru raised, we have put it across to policymakers and to industry. And they say, listen, don't always expect investments to come in mature sectors. Look at new age sectors which are seeing investment. Explain this point of view from the defense pack on the screen. Sakshi Batra.
Today, defense sector is up by about 0.5%. So looking at it, there is a high expectation that there could be a higher allocation. Remember, this is the first budget after Operation Sindoor. So that's why this is going to be extremely important. We have been seeing a slew of announcements where the Defense Acquisition Council has been announcing massive orders over the last 6 months. This time around, again, there is an expectation. How much could that defense outlay increase by is the question. Will it be 10% all the way to 25% as well? That's the broad range that most of the experts are expecting. What it comes out to be finally is something that we will have to watch out for in this speech. But definitely, defense is going to be a talking point in the budget this time around. There will be a higher allocation in the budget, that the government will be doing. That's for sure. What is the percentage outlay? Plus, I think, Siddharth, the big question is, given the lower headroom that we have shortfall of tax collections here. How much fiscal fiscal room is there to really elevate the defense spending is the key question. Will there be a way where the finance minister will be able to raise the non-tax revenues and be able to spend big on defense? Looking at the geopolitical scenario is something that we need to watch out for. It's a complete changed world order, and we need to see how the government will be maneuvering.
Shankar, come in on this, because the point that the survey made about a disinvestment approach which says that the government will perhaps hold up to only 26% and therefore a second round of further divestitures. Now, there have been questions around individual companies. Let's not talk about that. But taking that point forward, how much of a scope do you think? You saw that macro chart in terms of percentage trend line shifting downwards as far as defense expenditure is concerned. But from your point of view, how much of scope is there for a post-Operation Sindoor moment to be captured as far as defense allocations are concerned?
See, the defense allocations, for them to translate into actual acquisitions and purchases takes time. So I expect that the announcement would be a kind of medium-term perspective, just like with the NATO guys, they are saying we will reach 3% of GDP and 5% of GDP. India will probably present, Nirmala Sitharaman's budget should sort of probably give you a roadmap for the next 5 years on how they will increase or ramp up the spending in defense. Remember, you may not have a headroom this year, but you can always promise that there will be headroom in the next year and the year after that. And that should be the approach anyway for defense acquisitions, because the process is very long drawn.
Right.
And as far as the story, you mentioned the PSU disinvestment story. I think whoever came up with this idea of 26% sort of never looked back at it, at the government's own record. Since 2004, the 30 companies have been listed through various IPOs. These 30 companies are valued at around 19 lakh crores. Out of these 30 companies, 29 companies, government owns more than 89%. So let's get to 51 first, then we can be ambitious about 26.
Yeah,
let's sell some stuff first, you know. I mean, this is...
Fair point. There is so much
This is a
scope.
dead duck, actually.
Abha, you wanted to take it forward with our market guests. Viewers, we'll stay on the markets for another few minutes and then go back to broader policy making. Abha.
Absolutely. I think, just before I do that, Siddharth, I know he asked everyone else, but I want to ask Rajdeep how many years he's been actually observing the budget. Yes.
I can tell you a little story. In 1994, I was at NDTV when we were commissioned to do the post-budget reactions. So I recall standing, and this was Manmohan Singh's probably third or fourth budget in 1994. I recall standing in front of the BSE in Mumbai on Dalal Street, and the connection kept going off because the technology wasn't good enough. So we were doing it for Doordarshan, cracking large OB van, I think had been placed just outside BSE.
I remember those. Yeah.
So that's my first memory. And it is a day since then that I dread, because as an economics graduate, it forces me to almost go back and start reading about things that I thought I had forgotten over the last 30-35 years. Yeah, but it's been a long time. And I think that was, Manmohan Singh brought, that entire early 90s brought excitement to the budget. You can, whichever way you look at it, after 1991, a certain excitement came in, and it's never really gone. With the Chidambaram budgets in a United Front government, then you had Yashwant Sinha, Jaswant Singh. Every budget had something that became a major talking point. And I think that's been the big change that's taken place. Rajiv is probably the youngest here out of us all in terms of tracking budget. But as an investor, I can very quickly ask you, is there that excitement that exists today about a union budget? Or is there a sense, as Siddharth pointed out, they just want the markets just want the finance minister not to do anything that will harm the budget or harm the idea of the economy. No retrospective tax kind of bombshell suddenly being brought in. That's all that people really want.
Yeah.
No, I think once you achieve the major tax reforms, the budget becomes a more mundane procedure and process, as it should. Obviously, the earlier era had a number of major policy changes that required to be implemented, and the budget became a platform to announce those.
And also, so much more happens outside the budget, and you've got the geopolitical risks that are taking place. I know friends of mine who are more interested to know what Donald Trump's going to do with Iran, which they fear is going to have far greater impact than what happens at home. He's made an announcement today that India has agreed to buy oil from Venezuela and not Iran. Now, he does these statements.
But Rajdeep, that's fair enough. 2 days back, Prime Minister spoke to Delcy Rodriguez, Venezuelan stopgap president or Maduro's stand-in president. So
Yeah, but why should Donald Trump, my only problem is why should Donald Trump be making that announcement? We are a sovereign nation.
There is really no announcement. We've always been buying Venezuelan crude. It was the US and allies who sanctioned Venezuelan crude. We couldn't buy it and we had to switch. Now if it's available on the market, without sanctions,
my point is, why should Donald Trump be making whatever decisions are taking us off? Anyway, the pictures coming in are part of the ritual of budget making, where the finance minister meets the Rashtrapati, presents a copy of the budget to her.
E-copy.
In copy, and then sort of moves on her way to Parliament. So this is all part of the act of budget making. Next to Mr. Murmu is the MOS Finance.
Yes.
And he's also now the UP BJP president. So Mr. Chaudhary wears various hats. So Draupadi Murmu and Nirmala Sitharaman, and probably, of course, you've got a woman president and a woman finance minister. That doesn't happen too often. Today I was recalling when they spoke of Nirmala Sitharaman 9th consecutive budget. Nirmala Sitharaman first came on a TV studio on a show I did in 2008. And the only reason is I rang up the BJP person and said I want an English-speaking spokesperson. Because they were giving me only Hindi-speaking spokespersons on an English language show. And they said, oh no, we've got this new spokesperson, would you like her? I said, sure. To the credit of Nirmala Sitharaman, she came perfectly prepared, focused, came to the studio. Didn't even say that I want to do it from some external Zoom link. There was no Zoom also in those days. Came, and it's quite a meteoric rise when you think of it. She's been Minister of Defense, and she's been Minister of Finance.
And Commerce. Let's not forget.
So
and Commerce.
In 17
in
years,
2014, yes.
since I first met her, Nirmala Sitharaman यहाँ से वहाँ गई है, हम यहीं के यहीं रहे. That's the only difference.
But I think
Before we slip into a break, a quick look at the markets. Wrap it up for us, Sakshi, on what the markets are looking like right now.
Absolutely. So the markets are nervous. I mean, we are at 932 at this point in time. And what we are going to be probably asking the question is, after we've signed mother of all deals, is it going to be mother of all budgets that finance minister is going to present today? And that is something that the markets will be watching out for. Remember, the markets are down 4% down on the Nifty ahead of the budget all of January. And the Nifty is now only looking at any good news by way of taxation that can probably lift the sentiments on ground for investors at large. At this point in time, a nervous getting into the budget speech at this point in time.
Okay.
Fingers crossed for all the sectors.
All right. At this point, let's thank our colleagues from Business Today, Shailendra Bhatnagar, Abha Bakaya, and Sakshi Batra. And viewers, this is also a beginning for us for the Business Today show, the markets show opening and closing here on India Today, brought to you by the National Stock Exchange. As we continue our coverage, I want to toss this one to you, Rajdeep. In terms of that term that you have dealt with, dream budgets, the scope for dream budgets again changing because the Indian economy has been opened up, license Raj has been dismantled to a very, very significant extent. Yet budget making continues to fascinate everyone, including us who do it for a living. What do you think is your most seminal memory of the budget days?
Look, I'm not going to go into the past. You'll make me feel even older. But I'll only say that these words used, big bang budget, dream budget, I think we should refrain from making, these catchwords. They make great headlines. You remember Chidambaram's budget in 97 was sort of billed as the dream budget. Then we've had budgets being built as big bang budgets. I think budget making should be prosaic. What should be there is a vision. I have absolutely no problem that budget making increasingly should be about the vision and the direction in which you're taking the government. The word you used is the buzzword at the moment, deregulation. Everyone you talk about to says this budget will be about deregulation. Now, what does that mean? I know Shankar has been writing about it for years. And just one more point.
Yeah.
For years, we have not focused on state budgets. As the economic survey also pointed out, you've got about 19 states now with high revenue deficits. How much do we actually look at state budgets? State budgets actually at the end of the day affect far more.
No, Rajdeep, and that is why one of the other things, and that happens every 5 years, will be very significant this time, which is the report of the 16th Finance Commission headed by Arvind Panagaria. That will now decide what will be the share of states in the overall central kitty. And remember, from 2000-2001, it's gone up from 29.5% to 41%, with that additional 1% of 41 being on account of Jammu and Kashmir. And remember, I think for the state governments, they will perhaps, state finance ministers, state chief ministers will be looking at that with a great focus, because it's also about the so-called alleged north-south divide, which is also played out politically, and the allegations that the center is pulling back funding. See what is happening on G bill.
Sure, and you've got 4 big state elections in just a couple of months. So we've seen in the past, budgets have been at sometimes influenced by immediate electoral considerations, which is why I said you want a broad vision. You don't want to look at just the next 3 months, and to the credit.
Which is why the promise of the government that 75 years might be a change. We might just see this whole changing once again. We will be left with no arguments to make on it.
So in a strange way, rather than look at the next 3 months, look at the next 20 years. The government talks of Viksit Bharat 2047. But Shankar Iyer, because you've been writing about it so often in terms of deregulation, this whole buzzword, it's become almost like a buzzword that this budget will see deregulation. We've seen many false alarms there with governments in the past. There have been pushbacks. Do you believe now the government has the strength, both politically and in terms of certain global headwinds, to take the kind of tough decisions, some of which have been taken in the last 12 months by the Modi government, the so-called Reform Express? Do you believe that that is going to be a critical aspect of what we will see today?
Nothing like a crisis to clarify the mind.
That's right.
So all of the reforms that have happened in India are mostly driven by some form of crisis or not, and that sort of gives me a shot at plugging my book, Accidental India. But more importantly, if you look at the last 10 years itself, labor reforms, the labor code was first drawn out in 2015-16, was reformalized in 2019, was sent to the state governments in 2020, and has been officially sort of unveiled in 2026. This is a government which has had a full majority. This is a government or a political alliance which is ruling in 15 states, and yet they couldn't push. Now let's go back to ease of doing business. For 10 years, we've been hearing ease of doing business. This year, earlier, I think in August or September, Parliament, there was a question, how many clearances you require for a power project? 116. And for the other sectors, it's even worse. 10 years back, when Amitabh Kant used to be the new poster boy in DPIT and sort of talk about ease of doing business, I asked him whether they have ever done a flowchart of the clearances, the permissions. 115 clearances, which means that the file moves from the municipal center to the state capital to the national capital like a mileage gatherer. And all of this is completely raised. Let's see whether the Somnathan committee actually produces something. Because it's easy to say mother of all deals when we still don't know what is the impact of the UK deal.
No, but let's look at this way. The fact is, yes, over the years, there have been various, this debate has gone on about the number of regulatory compliances you need. To be fair to this government, they've made the effort. You cannot fault the Narendra Modi government on effort. Whether it's translated on the ground into, I meet MSMEs who still say that they get haunted both by GST tax inspectors, there's tax inspector Raj of GSTs, and they still have an unusual number of compliances to fill in. So it comes down to it, Rajiv, one thing is intent. The Modi government has shown intent on some of these issues, particularly over the last 12 months. Intent translating into action on the ground. Is that to be done in Delhi or is that to be done in the states? Is a question that's often asked.
I can't sort of resist the temptation.
Yes.
This government, intent is always executed. Whether policy is executed or not is a separate question. The Prime Minister says...
Give me an example.
So they have said for years that they will fix the power sector. This is the second bailout that is being planned next month in the new electricity bill in the last 10 years. Last time the Udaya or scheme was there. This time will be some new name. But the power sector loses something like 80,000 crores every year, and they haven't fixed it.
Very quickly, Rajiv, yes. Do you believe, where is the block for intent? The buzz is that this budget will be about a vision statement. It's one thing to have a vision. How do you translate the vision into action on the ground in a country of a subcontinental size with chief ministers, many of whom believe they are just as powerful as Delhi?
No, so some of these items are in the union list, and thus the central government has to drive them. But many of the items, like we discussed, are also now state subjects, and which have to be driven by different states at different levels.
But 19 states with huge revenue deficits before every election, the kind of freebie culture that it is.
There is a double engine sarkar now.
No, but whether it's double engine, triple engine, the fact is across the board,
They should implement. They should implement these reforms.
Yeah,
one political intent which is being displayed perhaps is also in the choice of the sari of Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. I'm going to put that out. It's very interesting that she is wearing a hand-woven Kanjivaram sari, sending a message to Tamil Nadu. And if you look at, this is her 9th consecutive budget. And from 2019 to 2026, the transition has been rather very, very interesting. Last year, the message was going to another poll-bound state, that is my home state of Bihar, where she chose to wear Madhubani print sari. This time it is Kanjivaram, honoring perhaps the Tamil Nadu's age-old weaving legacy. So that is how it has been from Ikkat to Bomkai to Katha and to Madhubani. So the message is very clear that the intent and, of course, the political messaging is for one of the poll-bound states, which is Tamil Nadu. We should be prepared for some SOPs to come in for also Bengal and Tamil Nadu, keeping in mind that. But just look at the transition, Rajdeep.
Sure, but
2019 to 2026.
I take your point, but style, you see, this is Sanjay Baru, as someone who worked closely with government over the years. Is there a tendency of finance ministers to play to the gallery as well? That this is their big day in the office, so they need headline, whether it's the sari you wear, whether it's the kind of, there has to be sher or shairi that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh as finance minister would resort to. Otherwise, a very careful man, suddenly on budget day, you would hear the finance minister remembering fairs or poets of the past. Do you believe style sometimes overcomes substance? Because substance goes well beyond, well beyond what happens in the budget.
This is what television has done to the union budget. You asked earlier, since when I was covering the budgets.
Yes.
In fact, 40 years. 1985 was the first time that I actually sat in Parliament listening to the union budget. VP Singh was the finance minister. It was not on television, right? When live television started on budget day, finance ministers have become, first of all, conscious about their national audience. And increasingly, governments have used the budget speech as a political speech. I think, we've been talking about the significance of the budget. Really, Part B was the only part of the budget which was important in the old days. Because you talked about taxes, you talked about customs, duties, etc. All that is out, right? All that is mostly out. That's why I said this year, the budget will be largely about tariffs.
And that is why, Rajdeep, perhaps the point that Dr. Baru is making, more attention in the political economy terms should focus on the 16th Finance Commission report. That will be significant. I just want to make a quick interjection.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Shankar, you said you were plugging your book about the accidental India. To my left here, Dr. Baru wrote about accidental Prime Minister. So, Rajdeep, Maria, imagine the coincidence of having two authors.
Accidentally.
And both of them are not accidental authors. But yeah, Maria.
So we are looking at those visuals now coming in where the photo opportunity at the Rashtrapati Bhavan is over. Now Finance Minister is heading to Parliament. That's where the meeting with the cabinet will happen, and the cabinet will be approving the budget, and then the finance minister heads to the Lok Sabha for a joint session where it will be about tabling of the budget. Piyush Mishra is joining us from the Rashtrapati Bhavan, from outside Rashtrapati Bhavan. Piyush, so finance minister is now on her way to the Parliament.
Well, yes, absolutely. Well, absolutely, Maria. Finance Minister has just left from the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Right behind me, you can also see the convoy. This is the convoy of Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, which is now heading towards the Parliament. She is now coming out from the President House. This is a Raisina Hill, and now she is going towards the Parliament House, where the cabinet meeting will happen. And in that cabinet meeting, the budget is going to be passed. And after the budget is passed, it is going to be tabled at 11 a.m. Before that, Finance Minister has just met with the President of India, where she has sought a permission to table the budget. And after seeking permission, now these are the live visuals which we are getting from Raisina Hill President House, where Nirmala Sitharaman has just come out along with her colleagues, and she is now going towards the Parliament. My video journalist Ankit Singh can zoom and show you the visuals of her vehicle entering inside the Parliament. These are the live visuals of the new Parliament building, where Nirmala Sitharaman has just entered. You can see as to how her vehicle has gone inside the Parliament House. Any minute from now, we will also see, Maria, the cabinet meeting to take place, and the cabinet is going to pass the budget, and then
I'm just going to stop you, Piyush.
Budget will be tabled. A lot of discussions,
I'll stop Piyush at a moment, because, yes, Maria, one of the points that was made is we're going to look at specific areas, and our budget dashboard will provide us that, of the critical areas, the challenges that lie ahead of Nirmala Sitharaman. Now, one of the areas, of course, is infrastructure. The Narendra Modi government has focused a lot of its political equity and financial equity, if you want to call it that, on building a strong infrastructural base. They've tried to make sure that that becomes, in a way, a big talking point. One critical area that Shankar mentioned, though, is power. Just give us a sense of investments that have been made in roads, in power over the last few years, and whether this government has any more fiscal headroom to continue with that kind of infrastructure.
I'm looking at the roads first. Remember, the government has been emphasizing that it is spending a lot in building infrastructure. So look at this graphics. This is essentially talking about the road infrastructure over the last few years, particularly financial year 2020 onwards. There has been overall the number of highways built per year that has gone up. If you look at it, it has moved up to 13.3K per kilometer. These are the visuals now coming in from the main gate of the Parliament of India, where the entire team, this is the budget drafting team, along with Finance Minister there. This is the second round of photo opportunity, and then she heads inside. I'm looking at that visual, Rajdeep, and as a woman, I want to highlight also the second woman who has been involved in this drafting, along with the Finance Minister, that is the DEA. A word on her, Siddharth. This is rather interesting because the focus has been...
Well, Anuradha Thakur, Maria, is actually one of the stars in policy making. The Department of Economic Affairs, one of the most crucial departments in the Ministry of Finance, because pretty much everything, including the appointment file for the governor of the RBI, goes through her. So I think obviously chosen for her merit and performance, and clearly this has the hallmark, this budget, of a very capable set of officials. But remember, this is also a unique budget in the sense that there is no finance secretary. Rajdeep, that's usually the process, that the finance secretary is considered the first amongst equals and convenes the entire process. So I guess in some ways, the finance secretary not being appointed, the reasons are not known publicly. But I thought that is also Dr. Baru appoint.
I believe the cabinet secretary is doubling up as the finance secretary.
Well, he was one of the best policy makers that we have seen in North Block for.
But would that be the first occasion in the country's history that you have a budget exercise taking place without without a full-fledged... I don't think it's ever happened that you would not have a finance secretary at a time when the budget is in place.
Absolutely.
I mean, that, it certainly is a question worth asking. Why don't you have... You need a full-time finance secretary, surely, Mr. Zarabi, don't you?
Absolutely.
I mean, the government should be giving you a reason. You're saying...
Well, I think it really does... The finance secretary is not a post. It is the first among equals. But that role has obviously been performed by...
It's a 12-member committee which has been involved in this drafting.
Maria, since you have the budget dashboard, I wonder if you have the data on GST collections, if at all it's there. But the reason I ask is, Viewers, we just have had the latest GST data come in, and this broader point.
So this is the number here.
Yeah, okay,
Let's go ahead. Go ahead, Maya.
Yes. So this is about the GST collection annually. If you look at the larger picture, for financial year 2025, it is around 16.5 lakh crores. In 2024, it was 22.1 lakh crores. So remember, it was in the second half, around October is when the second generation GST reforms were brought in. So the government's calculation certainly has been that this will increase the overall GST collection. Projection
and
for
Maria,
this year.
you keep that data on screen because we have the latest January month data, and there's a political economy story which Rajdeep, Maria, our guests could reflect on. Net GST collections in the month of January are up 6.8%. But the most interesting part, if you see from a GST, and we know the way it is calculated, Haryana has seen 27% growth. And the steepest decline at 46% is in the state of Jharkhand. Now, with the framework of GST, Shankar, does this sort of tell us that Haryana is now a powerhouse state that has gone beyond what it was 15, 20 years, 30 years ago?
Naib Saini can be happy for 24 hours, but the fact is that this reflects the higher sales in automobiles and therefore the indent on the GST collections from Haryana. And Jharkhand is down because no mining has happened due to unseasonal rainfall, and the down numbers in total mining were visible in the GDP figures. So this is a one
Goa
swallow
has
story.
also struggled with that.
Yeah.
Dr. Baru, on the 16th Finance Commission, before we go back to Maria, how significant is this report for center-state relationship and that so-called divide that was coming up, at least in debate terms?
No, first of all, the Finance Commission report is significant because it's actually a constitutional body that every 5 years has to take a view on the distribution of finances between centre and states. And many state governments have been complaining that they have not been getting due share. So what this Finance Commission says is very significant. It is also significant that this is one of the first finance commissions headed by a non-finance chairman, Arvind Panagari, as a trade economist. You know, for the last several years, we've had some people who have been in the field of public finance. So purely in professional terms, I'm curious to see what kind of imprint the chairman would have, because he's not a finance guy.
We're just getting some breaking news at the moment. Gold and silver continue to crash. Remember, there's been a lot of investment in recent times in gold and silver. But the big news this morning is gold and silver continue to crash. Gold, silver prices have hit their lower circuits today. Prices have crashed ahead of union budget. The price crash amidst the strengthening NG dollar. You want to explain that, Siddharth, for our viewers? What explains gold and silver crashing in this manner?
We had commodity market experts earlier on the show. There are two reasons. One, that this rally was unprecedented. And there is some fundamental, particularly on silver, which regards to the new the new EV age that we are in. But profit booking seems to be the single most important factor. Maybe Rajiv can add to that. And the fact that as far as the global uncertainty is concerned, Greenland and other things that President Trump has been up to have also fed into safe haven buying, and gold, of course, the safest of the safest bets.
No, these things go in a reflexive loop. High prices, in fact, counterintuitively, sometimes bring in even more investors who come in out of greed.
It's the fear of missing out, Rajiv,
Yeah,
which is a lot of people
FOMO,
fall for that. FOMO.
Driving it into a parabolic rise.
Okay. Maria, you wanted to give us a graphic on gold rates and how they've gone.
Yes, so this is how it is placed right now. And of course, this is the assessment, as you were pointing out, it has hit the lower circuit. But it's actually showing that, sudden increase post 2024 in the last 2 years. And the increase has been rather sharp from 2025 January onwards. So perhaps in the last 1 year alone, this is how the graph is looking like. So this is the price of gold. And now let's look at the silver prices. That again has been growing up sharply since January 2025. So it is in the last 1 year. And this has to do with how the global, the turbulence has been globally and with regards to geopolitics. I think when we look at these numbers, Rajiv Mantri, come in on this, with both gold and silver hitting the lower circuit just ahead of the budget, Should this be read in terms of some kind of announcement which can be also for the government to acknowledge it as a matter of concern?
So I would not read too much into the week-to-week prices, but I think there is a beyond the week-to-week prices, there is a bigger story probably here regarding the status of the dollar in the international economy. I think a lot of analysts and commentators have been looking at that very closely on how the dollar's position is getting weaker and people are seeking alternatives. Now, obviously, there are no alternatives. Maybe Shankar, you want to also comment on that?
Just to add, we've got more breaking news. Because there's gross GST collection numbers announced, rise 6.2% in January to over 1.93 lakh crores. The gross GST collections rise to by 6.2% in January. Shankar, there's been a concern over tax revenues in 25-26. States have also had their concerns on this. How do you see it? GST is broadly seen as a game changer compared to previous systems. And the government did go in for reforms in October to try and simplify certain systems. Has enough been done? Obviously, it won't be done in the budget now. It will be done outside the budget. But do you believe the government has enough fiscal headroom at the moment?
Just about, I think, 1 lakh crore must be there with the government. It has a very limited headroom just now because the corporate and direct taxes collections are down, the GST has been cut. The GST story, in fact, is interesting that the government had estimated that they would lose only about 48,000 crores or 50,000 crores because of the cuts, because they expected an upside in the sectors where they have raised GST rate. But that hasn't happened. In the last 3 months, the GST collections have been down by about 60,000 crores, which was far in excess of what they had estimated. So there is something that they don't understand, and that this is typically about continental size economy, is you wonder which part of the story is not playing out. And to some extent, their own inability to grasp it is their own fault because they are not willing to release GST data. This data of collection of GST, just like the question about Haryana and Jharkhand was asked, if this data was allowed to be explored by economists, analysts, was made public, was put into AI, you would get much more to the district level to propel the economy. Their inability or rather resistance to release data, referenceable data, is actually holding back the economy.
Okay, we've got Prime Minister Modi has reached Parliament Union budget. This is, of course, again, part of the rituals and tradition that you have a budget cabinet meeting before the finance minister eventually goes to the Lok Sabha. So that meeting is taking place. But Maria, you just want to give us the GST annual collections on the budget dashboard.
Yes, so just look at this data. And of course, the GST reforms, the first set came in the year 2018. And since then, it has been increasing, barring the year 21. That was the COVID year, of course. And then comes this particular graph of a sharp rise of 22.1 lakh crores with in financial year 25. And the sense certainly is that it will grow up further in this year. But as Siddharth was pointing out, perhaps the bigger concern will be with regards to states and what is their share in this collection, because that's what the states have been saying in terms of their share going down.
Rajdeep, in fact, 1st February is another first. We have spoken about some first, and this is that the 40% rate that applies to luxury cars, to tobacco, pan masala also kicks in from today. Yes, Dr. Baru.
You see, one of the issues which we're not talking about is the suggestion that we should get away from the secrecy of the budget. You just shown the finance minister going to Rashtrapati Bhavan, now briefing the cabinet, cabinet hears it for the first time. All this is from an earlier era where taxation was the key to the budget presentation. All of us are looking at sales tax, excise duties, etc. All that is out of the budget. And I think there is a time has come for open budgeting that happens in most modern economies, most developed economies. There's no reason for this secrecy. There's no reason, as Shankar said, data should be available in advance for people to analyze.
You're saying it should be before the budget speech, the data should be put out in the public
domain. Put out everything and let people look at the numbers. And finance minister just comes to the parliament to get parliament's authorization for the spending, for expenditure and for revenue raising. But Today, at a time when none of the taxes are going to be impacted, the kind of secrecy we saw in the old days is no longer relevant.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Let's give you the headlines at the top of the hour. All eyes are on Union Budget 2026. Nirmala Sitharaman to deliver her 9th consecutive budget, a record. She is expected to lay a roadmap for the government's Viksit Bharat plan, taxes, reforms and a growth push. Spotlight will be on Part B of Nirmala's speech, which is expected to have the roadmap for the future.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and the Minister of State for Finance and others meet President Draupadi Murmu. Before the budget, President gives dahi chini as sign of good luck to the Finance Minister ahead of the budget.
And Nirmala dons a Kanjivaram sari, hand-woven in Tamil Nadu. Nirmala's big Swadeshi pitch on budget day after a Mangalgiri, a Bomkai, a Madhubani sari in earlier budgets. Nirmala champions handloom weavers and their fantastic work.
But amidst the dwindling government revenues with tax cuts, support for jobs, manufacturing and MSMEs still remain key challenges. What about SOPs for poll-bound states and capital expenditure on infra that may continue to remain a central plank?
And just ahead of the budget, US President Donald Trump's big remark on India. He has said that India is coming in, will buy oil from Venezuela and not Iran.
Okay, all eyes on Nirmala Sitharaman, Finance Minister, as she delivers her 9th consecutive budget in about an hour from now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reached Parliament where a cabinet meeting will be convened. Remember, as part of the tradition, it is at that cabinet meeting that Nirmala Sitharaman will officially take permission from the cabinet before she goes to the Lok Sabha to present the budget and then tables it later in the Rajya Sabha. 9 consecutive budgets is a record. The highest number of budgets, interestingly, were presented by Morarji Desai, who was finance minister through much of the 50s and the early 60s. But all eyes now on Nirmala Sitharaman at the moment. Remember, of course, that this is a budget in a session which will be followed by a string of assembly elections. So the political fallout will be looked at closely. Maushmi Singh is there in Parliament. Maushmi, we've seen in the past the opposition gearing up to encircle the finance minister, but recent election results have almost seemingly suggested that the government is on a bit of a roll. What's the general mood in Parliament? First of all, Sunday,
Yes,
parliamentarians don't usually like to come to Parliament on a Sunday. That's unusual. But is there a sense that the opposition will look to use this opportunity, including the budget debate, to score some points ahead of the election? Is one eye both of the government and the opposition on those elections that follow soon after?
A very good morning, Rajiv. The Parliament is buzzing and but natural, it's going to be a balance between, a rational budget and a poll budget. We've seen last time round before the Bihar and the Delhi Assembly elections, the tax relief and the Makhana board announcements and multiple announcements of highways and railways related to poll-going states have really spelled it out that the 5 election-going states could expect some big surprise for them. And we've seen Nirmala Sitharaman wearing that Kanjivaram sari from Tamil Nadu. So clearly, a lot of messaging there. But I've seen a lot of students coming in. Nirmala Sitharaman apparently are will interact with students from across the country after they are going to see the budget speech live. I've also witnessed lots of chartered accountants coming into the Parliament premises. They will be witnessing the budget speech live. So as you said, it's going to be really historic because Nirmala Sitharaman is known for a very long budget speech. She holds that record for 2 hours, 42 minutes. We have to see whether she curtails herself within 2 hours, or like last time, or whether she exceeds that, and that will actually decide whether the parliamentarians can have their lunch on time as far as
Right.
the Sunday is concerned. But yes, a lot of eyes on Nirmala Sitharaman, including the oppositions.
Okay, just to introduce the guest that we have with us, Dr. Sanjay Baru, veteran economic editor, columnist, author, is with us. Also, Rajiv Mantri of Navam Capital is with us, investor and author. And Shankar Iyer, another veteran of many budgets, author. So we've got lots of wise heads here who've covered several budgets, even more than Nirmala Sitharaman's 9 budgets. We are also joined by Shehzad Poonawalla, national spokesperson of the BJP, and by Rahul Ahluwalia, founder director of Foundation for Economic Development and former member of the Niti Aayog. Shehzad Poonawalla, just very quickly to pick up from the point that was made about this budget, about budgets normally having some shadow of the election. Last time was on the eve of Delhi elections. There was a major tax break given, particularly for the lower middle classes, many of whom felt that they weren't getting enough out of budgets. Do you believe that that shadow still exists this time? Or will it be the vision statement that we are told that will dominate this budget?
First of all, good morning to both Rajdeep and Maria and the other people who have to come on a Sunday. And new tradition also in this way, that first budget from Kartavya Bhavan, from Atmanirbhar Bharat Bhavan. So now, having said that, Rajdeep, just before I come to your question, 10 seconds on something I heard before you were addressing with Sanjay ji, that why budgets are not open. Rajdeep, like me, you have studied law. We both didn't practice law, but you have studied constitution. Article 112 mandates that budget can have to be placed only before parliament, before it is put in the public domain. So it is constitutional the duty of any government that it cannot make the budget public, even if it has no issues on secrecy, because this is our parliamentary and constitutional obligation to first place it before parliament, and only then the budget can be made public. So just for your clarification, viewers' clarification also. Secondly, Rajdeep, the worst thing, the most important thing that people accuse us is कि ये मोदी को देखो, ये मोदी जी जो है ना, ये good politics को good economics बना दिए हैं. हमने GST, when we got in GST 2017, Gujarat elections were around the corner. Every political analyst said कि मत लाना GST. Modi ji was the person who said मुझे चिंता नहीं वोट की, ये मेरे देश के लिए one tax one nation लाना है. उन्होंने लाया. We suffered little bit in Gujarat elections, but despite that we have bought that reform. And today, Rajdeep, I want to give you something that will be the key word of today's budget. It will be Gita. You will say, अरे इसमें भी हिंदू मुस्लिम कर दिया पूनावाला ने. Gita means G for growth, I for infrastructure, T for technology, and A for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Highest growing large economy in the world. We have gone from 11th position. Sorry?
Interesting. It will be, Shehzad Poonawalla, I've always said that if you can come up with these acronyms all the time, you will go very far in politics, because this government likes acronyms. But we will keep that in mind. Gita is what you said.
But
Rahul Ahluwalia. Okay, just a minute. We've got limited time today. We've got limited time today. I'll give you 10 seconds more. Keep it at 10.
At least let me elaborate on my Gita. See, we are already registering highest growth. We have pushed in great capital expenditure in the last 10-11 years. Infrastructure pe boost hai. We have now made technology accessible to the public, digital delivery of services and goods. And 1 lakh crore rupees waste to 1 lakh crore rupees jata hai. 85% is not being eaten up. And Atmanirbharta can be seen the manner in which our defense exports, our mobile phone exports have increased. And we are at lowest NPA, lowest inflation rates. And therefore, this gives us more room to boost the consumption, private consumption also, expenditure in infrastructure also. And despite the global headwinds, we are seeing it as an opportunity.
The finance minister will be briefing the spokespersons around 1:30, but Shehzad seems to be prepared much before that briefing that will be done by the finance minister.
One of the key, of course, aspects is for all the talking up of the economy, there are certain concerns. Private investment continues not to pick up. Rahul Ahluwalia, your founder director of Foundation for Economic Development, former Niti Aayog, should that be a concern for whatever has been done or not done in the last few years? Post-COVID, private investment has simply not picked up.
That's a great question, Rajdeep, and it's exactly what I wanted to talk about. So thank you. in fact, that's the big story of the last 5 to 6 years, right? The big concern has been private investment has not picked up. Our diagnosis is that private investment is not picking up in India because we are not globally competitive. If you think about manufacturing scale, if you look at the one big success story that India has had is Apple manufacturing iPhones in India. India is only 2% of Apple's global market. The only reason they are manufacturing iPhones in India is because they can export them to the rest of the world. We have to achieve this kind of competitiveness in every other sector. The investment not picking up is a signal that public capex and public investment in infrastructure is not the answer. So what is the answer? And I think the government is on the right track, and you've been mentioning it yourself on your show. Deregulation is the answer. Ease of doing business is the answer. A globally competitive business climate is the answer. So that's the big picture that we should be looking for from this budget. Deregulation, I just, one last point I'll make is it comes in two flavors. One is you have to reduce the obstacles. The other is you have to increase the certainty and the stability. And both of these things are really more signals that you can expect from a budget. Concretely, I think tariff is the one big thing that we should expect. Tariff rationalization and tariff lowering is something that I'm really looking forward to, at least in the budget.
Okay. Rajiv Memani, President CII, good person to get on that. Private investment just not picking up. And I'd like you to give me a good answer as to why that's happening, Rajiv.
Hi, Rajdeep. No, I don't think it's accurate to say that private investment is not picking up. I think private investment may not be growing to the extent that we all want to desire. But I think private investment is picking up in the last 12 months, 18 months. Even if you look at the data for March 25, I think private investment showed good signs. I think during the first quarter of this year, it slowed down a little bit because of all the tariff-related uncertainty, but it started picking up again. So I don't think it's accurate to say that private investment is not picking up. That's first. Can it do better? Surely it can do better. I think there's much greater potential. Balance sheets are under leveraged. Economy is growing very well. So it should be picking up much more. And I think my personal view is that it will pick up more as capacity utilizations go up. And I think as we have more focus around ease of doing business, more focus around factor cost of production efficiencies in India, more focus around which are the goods and services that India really wants to focus on. Maybe a list of 7,500 goods that India wants to focus on. I think it'll get a boost further. One of the other reasons, Rajdeep, that there is a challenge also is because of the global uncertainty, and you have large manufacturing capacity that's built up in one part of the world. I think there is always the price volatility, commodity volatility that happens because of that. And also the amount of technology and investments that's gone there. I think sometimes even for private sector to take that risk and leap of faith, they would need some more, maybe that's why I said focused PLIs, focused incentives to ensure that they're able to weather the initial storm when they're looking at setting up large investment capacities in India.
Maria, you have the numbers.
Yes, so if we were to look at the private investment trends, the latest trends in India, sir, it looks like, in terms of financial year 2023-24, it was around 4.2 trillion rupees. In 2024-25, it did go up, but in 2025-26, it is around 4.89. What do you think should be done, Rajiv Memani, in this sector then, for the private sector to pick up that trend, because that's needed?
No, it is. I think it is picking up. I mean, if you go sector by sector, you can say that the numbers are picking up. As I said, the first half of this year, it was slightly slower because of what was happening in the rest of the world. But private investment is picking up. Having said that, as I said, there is always more that can be done given where Indian economy is. My first thing is, I think we need to have, as was said earlier by Rahul, I think on ease of doing business, on factor reforms, I think India needs to be more competitive. Land reforms, availability of land. It takes more time to set up plants, projects in India. And I think the government has done a lot in the last 6 to 12 months. I think we also need to communicate much more. So I think that's one area. that I think we need to be doing more. And secondly, I think we need to have, we talked about the success in electronics manufacturing and others. In semiconductors, we are seeing good success. One of the reasons for that is we have a very clearly laid out incentive scheme, especially in newer areas and others, PLIs or other incentives that have been given. I think for chosen products where India wants to be, as was said in the economic survey, where we want to be strategically well-positioned, strategically resilient or dominant, whatever the word used is. I think those products we need to identify and have a clearly laid out path in terms of technology partnerships, incentives, buying preferences, long-term glide path on customs. I think those are the areas that we need to look at, and as was again said by Rahul earlier, I think if we have customs duty rationalization that we will, at least for the raw material products and others, that will also make India competitive. I do believe that as India signs the FTAs, and once these FTAs become effective, which will take, which could take 6 to 12 months depending on the FTA we're looking at, if that happens, then that will give another boost to manufacturing in India. But I do agree, Rajdeep.
Dr. Maru, you wanted to put a word in.
Be one of the central things.
Sorry, Rajiv. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
This is when I miss Rahul Bajaj. You said earlier about Indian business giving 11 out of 10 for every budget. The fact is
I said it a few days ago. Yes, maybe yesterday. Yes.
The fact is that private investment has not been picking up for 10 years. Forget about last quarter or the last year. For 10 years, it's been stagnant. And the government, the finance minister herself asked Indian business, why are you guys not investing? We talk about animal spirits. I wish Indian industry were more forthright in telling the government why they are not investing, rather than fudge around and say, no, it's going up a little, it will go up. Come on, there is a major problem of confidence.
Yeah, go ahead, Raju.
No, so I would say private actors are rational. If you look at capacity utilization, it's been stuck below 80%.
Exactly.
Yes. So why would people put up more capacity if your existing capacity is not utilized?
No, but isn't it partly, or at least that's the explanation given, that we live in extremely uncertain times?
No, Rajdeep,
and the geopolitical risks are such.
I'm afraid that's not the answer. The real problem is demand. Why is capacity utilization low? It's not,
no, it's not low. I think it's optimal.
No, it's not optimal. It's below 80%. Optimal. You say optimal when you hit 80%. That's when companies begin to look at future investments. It's been below 80%.
Let me bring
my take on this. It is productivity driven.
Demand is not picking up.
So productivity is making your assets sweat better.
No, but unless you get demand, unless domestic demand picks up, the government has made efforts.
Clearly, the economy has been growing, right? The economy has been growing.
Why is it therefore, when the economy is growing, when your macroeconomic numbers are so solid, why is it that investors are still not putting their money where their mouth is the question?
One data point and one question. Data point is Indian companies are sitting on at least 6 lakh crores.
Yes.
Okay. The question they are asking is, what do we produce that China is not able to sell in India? Because we are not competitive against China on across the board.
But Shankar, demand is also not picking up.
That's a secondary.
That is why you gave those GST reductions.
Demand has come from more service-led industries.
Demand goes up.
I'm also joined at the moment by Varun Santosh of the Congress. I'll go to Shehzad in a moment because he wants to respond. But Varun Santosh, it's all very easy to say, that private investment has not picked up. This government has done a lot to encourage private investment over the years. They've given various incentives. We can go to the corporate tax breaks that took place a few years ago. But for some reason, private investment is reluctant to invest. Now, is the fault lie with the government or does it lie with the investors? Does it lie with private sector? You're sitting on 6 lakh crores, but you're unwilling to put your money. I come back to it where your mouth is. You'll come on our shows and say, yes, we want the animal spirits of the economy to revive, but they're not reviving.
Rajdeep, who marshals the resources
the
of the
banks
country?
also have been restructured.
Sure. So you've got all that in place. The banks have been restructured. Why is investment not picking up?
See, what is the duty of the Prime Minister? To marshal the resources of the country to make it work for India, for Team India, right? Now, why is private investment not picking up? Because 8 lakh crore of, tax cuts have been given, yet demand has not picked up. It's because it's a complete mismanagement of the economy, of the Prime Minister.
Give me the exact mismanagement of the economy. How? Give me an example.
Right. Now, let's take the economic survey. the government's own economic survey of last year, said that, quoting Lowy Institute of Australia, that power gap of India is -4, which is the worst in Asia after Russia and North Korea. Which basically means, what is the power gap which Lowy Institute says? We have great economic resources, we have a great youth dividend, we have a great R&D system and tech ecosystem, yet we are not able to marshal all of this to work for Team India, which is a 140 crore people. Why? Why? Because, let's go back to Gita, right? Which Shehzad Poonawala said. Gita says, Karmanye vadika raste ma phaleshu kadachan. Do your work and let the fruits play out.
Rajdeep,
What the politics of BJP is that they only focus on the politics, the fruits of power, and not delivering it to the people.
No, these are all, you see, shorn of political rhetoric. I want specifics.
Please answer that.
We've got a quick response from you, Shehzad Poonawala. You see, this is the major challenge ahead of the budget. What are you actually going to do to revive the animal spirits? As I said, government has made various efforts, but they are not effectively working on the ground in terms of private investment. That's the reality. CapEx is what is driving your growth. It is not what should be driving your growth, which should be private investment.
Rajdeep, now please be fair to me and give me 30 seconds before you make your next intervention. First of all, if you see the corporate investment announcements, in H1 FY25 it was 7.9 lakh crore and now in H1 FY26 it is 14 lakh crore plus. Secondly, gross fixed capital formation is up by 7.8% in this FY, and apart from that it is up to 30% of our GDP. It used to be 27% of the GDP in 2014. If you are saying this has not happened, then let me give you specific examples what we have done. Look at the investments that have come in through the PLI scheme. Look at the fact that we have now streamlined the labor codes. Look at the fact that now we have even boosted the consumption through GST 2.0 reforms. Look at the ease of doing business. And yes, कर्म करना केवल हमारी चिंता नहीं, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की भी है. The regulation process that we are easing from here, we are removing compliances, we are removing archaic laws. What are the states? State governments also have to do their bit. They can't do Rajniti in the studio and then come and lecture us. Please tell me, Rajdeep, today,
most of these states are governed by the BJP.
1 second, Maria, just 10 seconds. Maria, हमारे स्टेट में तो अच्छा ही हो. For instance, I'll give you the state you are sitting in, Noida, Uttar Pradesh. In that place, we have now got a very progressive labor code. In fact, it allows the women to do the night shift also. But what is the Rajniti that Kerala does? कभी बोलो ना, बंगाल क्या राजनीति कर, बंगाल के लीडरशिप क्या राजनीति करते हैं लेबर कोड पे? Why aren't they doing the labor code reforms properly? Why aren't they following the lead that the central government is following? So reform process and regulation को enabling environment में करना is also the duty of the states. Many of the things are also dependent on the state government. Having said that, secondly, now see, I am sure Congress will have problem with Gita, but let me give you just one example, Rajdeep. There used to be 2 mobile phone manufacturing units or assembling units in this country. Today there are 300 plus. ये किसने बनाया? ये जिन ने बनाया क्या? Is this not a reality? Is this not a reality that today India is self-sufficient in its own mobile phone requirement? First, we used to import it, because of which we used to pay import bill for electronic goods. Please, Rajdeep, tell me, toys we used to import, 70% of our toys was from China. Today we are exporting toys up to 37%. Defense goods exports have increased to 23,000 crore.
But Rajdeep, this is an interesting data here. If you look at it in terms of FDI for various states, it's Karnataka, which is not a BJP ruled state, which is in fact a Congress driven state. It has $5.69 billion investment. So that's what it looks like right now, moving to Maharashtra at 5.36, Tamil Nadu 2.67. So in top 3, it is the opposition ruled states.
Except Maharashtra, which is of course BJP ruled state. No, but before we make it a political debate, one last word I'll give you and then I'll move to Chandrajit Banerjee.
No, what is the real wage growth of India? That's the data that we should focus on. 0.01% over the last 5 years. Devastating number this is. 0.01% real wage growth of Indians over the last 5 years. This is
partly colored by the fact that 2 of those years were COVID years.
But still, over the last 3 years, right? So, COVID is far gone now. Now, why are they failing? Because they're passing the buck again now. And sorry, Shehzad, Karnataka is leading, as Maria just pointed out. And point number 2.
Karnataka was in the top even when the BJP was in power. It's not as if Karnataka has suddenly become the number one state. Once the Congress, you see, this is the problem. You all cherry pick what suits you all.
So let's go back to the basics then. Who leads Team India? It's the Prime Minister's job. He's the head coach, right? And
okay,
what?
In fact,
No. So he's
Priyanka Gandhi Vadra has spoken. Let's listen into what she's saying.
Sure.
I mean, it's very predictable reaction which is coming in from various political parties already now. Go ahead. Let's play the soundbite.
Budget से क्या उम्मीदें हैं आपकी? What's your expectation from the budget?
It's very. I don't have much expectation, but
जी, मैम एब्स्टीन फाइल्स पे कुछ कहेंगे? बजट से क्या उम्मीदें हैं आपकी? What's your expectation from the budget?
it's very. I don't have much expectation, but
जी, मैम एब्स्टीन फाइल्स पे कुछ कहेंगे?
Let's go straight across to Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General CII, now joins us. Mr. Banerjee, we are in the midst of an interesting discussion on what many believe is the big challenge for Nirmala Sitharaman at a time of global headwinds. How do you navigate what is a difficult economic environment and spur, to use the words famously used by Manmohan Singh in 1991, revive the animal spirits of the economy? The truth of the matter is, why is it that private investment is still not keeping up with what otherwise seems to be, from an Indian perspective, strong macroeconomic numbers?
So I think this was something which I would have really talked about strongly a couple of years back, or a year back even. But private sector investments have kicked in. If you see, there are sectors like the cement, there are sectors like steel, there are sectors like renewables. Many more sectors have actually picked up. So private sector investments are kicking in. But coming to your specific question, I'd like to really focus on, this is the time that, I mean, with the global headwinds which you really talked about, India can move into the next phase of reforms strongly, and reforms which are both at the central level and much more in the state levels that needs to be done. More powers to the states who, or rather incentives, if you would wish to use that word, to those states which do reform, and which they don't. And actually the investments figures in the states are in tune with those who are able to provide a stable infrastructure, be it social infrastructure, be it other infrastructure which are required. So I would really expect that capex to continue, which will crowd in private sector investment, reforms to continue, really focus on a cost and ease of doing business. But this is an opportunity, as you talked again about global headwinds. Let's also reform. Everything cannot be manufactured here. So trade reforms. So reforms in the trade side, 3-tier duties in terms of reforms, which was one very important factor, which we talked about the reforms earlier.
Mr. Banerjee,
landmark reforms took place.
Yes,
very critical.
Is highlighting an important point that the investors are sitting on around 6 lakh crores. Now, they are not ready to invest. Why do you think there is that great degree of caution or concern here?
So there are investors, both domestic and foreign, which are sitting. There is a global sort of turmoil, as we have noticed. But as we have also seen across the globe, that India still sits on a good spot. Yes, there are issues which needs to be seen with the prism of the global turbulences, for which investors might be sitting in. But there are good projects. There are good investable projects where investors are putting in their money. And the opportunity therefore lies in that there is money to be invested in. If we really create bankable projects, if we create focus on the capex, which I spoke about, and if we are able to crowd in investments through further reforms which we expect from the budget in a few minutes' time, I'm sure that will
Shankar
start
has a question here. Please go ahead, Shankar.
Chandrajit, you've been a visitor to Davos and a knowledgeable person on many of the state investment summits. In your estimation, how many or what percentage of the MOUs get converted into actual investments?
See, I think, MOUs are one, but yes, you're right. I personally, and I think even states today have taken cognizance of the fact that what's more important is to be focused on what really happens on the ground and what investments come in. So because you mentioned about Davos this time, one was really looking at hopefully not more of MOUs, but more of what can happen on the ground, what type of investment opportunities and investments shall trickle in. I think the focus would have to be, and you are very right, the focus has to be on what would be the employment generated in X number of years and what would be the type of money that would be put onto the table in X number of years. There has to be finite period of time. And third, very importantly, what is it that one is offering in terms of infrastructure, just not subsidies and incentives, because sometimes that doesn't even come, the subsidies which are promised. So let's not get into that route of subsidies. Let's get into in the route of where it can be much more stable pipeline.
I just want to understand, and do you believe that this budget, in a sense, given these global headwinds, and we've spoken about this, how adversity turns into opportunity, this becomes the opportunity to reset the way we look at tariffs. We've struck these trade deals. This is the budget where you send that signal, even without going into specifics, that is the direction we are going. You need something like that, to give business the sense that this is now our moment. You strike a FTA deal, which is going to take 6 to 12 months. We don't know till the final print is out what it will look like.
27 countries, 27 months.
Yeah, that's right. We don't know how long that will take. But what you can do today yourself is perhaps use this budget to actually do what, let's say, Chidambaram did in 97 with direct taxes, what Manmohan Singh did in 91 with trade liberalization. This is your moment to look at tariffs.
This is, Rajdeep, India's IPL moment, since we are both cricket fans. What happened to Indian cricket after IPL is that we learned to play with foreigners in a domestic league. That gave us the competitive capability. The same has to be done by opening up sectors, allowing investments, dealing with FTAs.
Give me an example of the things that could be done. Any specific area where you believe this budget provides that opportunity?
Very simple. In agriculture. Agriculture has there is an opportunity to open up agriculture, to find ways to do.
Easier said than done. You've seen the political reaction, the backlash every time you mention the word. Mr. Varun Santosh's party will be doing high jumps. You see, in India, where you stand depends on where you sit. Even if he wanted to do it, even in the opposition, he's not going to allow it.
But his party has spoken about the second green revolution for at least about 30 years
That's
now.
right. But I'm saying,
the problem with...
do you believe that this is because even when it comes to trade deals, what's the first thing, including the Prime Minister, they say we are keeping agriculture and dairying out of any negotiation. Do you believe it is possible to use this opportunity?
Amul cheese is being sold in Switzerland. So let's not sort of run down our competitive edge of Indian companies. When India's software sector was opened, it was offered to all the Infosys and TCS that they will close the option of foreign investment in that area. And Narayan Murthy and others, I think FC Kohli and others said, no, we will not close down. We will have 100%. Whoever wants to come, that is the only way we will compete. Do we close down on GCC? Now, slowly, we have opened up insurance, we have opened up telecom, we have opened up GCCs. So this is the way. So you let foreign companies come into India.
The concern is that only the bigger players...
Autos and textiles.
Okay.
So auto manufacturing, textiles, these are areas where I think India should accept more and more foreign investment.
In terms of agriculture, the concern is that only the bigger players like Amul and all will benefit. What about the small farmers?
No, but Mr. Amit Shah has been creating some 500 odd cooperatives. I don't know to what extent, whether to control the finances of the cooperatives or to promote the cooperatives in agriculture. This has to be, somebody has to determine what is happening to the cooperative sector. This is the first time in independent India that the cooperative sector, the cooperative ministry and department is divorced from the Ministry of Agriculture.
Rajdeep, yes. You spoke about 1991, right?
Yes.
About trade reform. What exactly did 1991 do? It exposed Indian industry to greater competition by reducing tariff rates from 3 digits to 2 digits, right? we once again come to the stage where unless we expose Indian industry to greater competition and stop mollycoddling them, you will not get economies of scale, you will not get competitiveness. India's biggest problem, manufacturing sector's biggest problem is lack of scale. We constantly complain about China. Unless you expand scale at home, unless you make yourself more competitive, improve labor productivity, how do you do this? By lecturing to CII and FICCI,
Can
you're
I
not
ask,
going to do it.
if Chandrajit Banerjee is still with us, if Mr. Banerjee, you're still with us, you want to... Okay, we'll try and get a CII representative of that, but Varun Santosh, if the finance minister today, and it is still an if, announces a kind of tariff rationalization or pushes for particular specific sectors, some of which have been mentioned, agriculture, textiles, automobile. Do you believe that the opposition will welcome it? Will the opposition welcome it, or will you stand, your stand will depend on where you sit, as we've seen with all governments? Prime Minister Modi had one view on GST when he was in as Gujarat Chief Minister, another view as Prime Minister, one view on a minimum support price for agriculture when in opposition, when in government. You're the same.
Rajdeep, let's focus on the outcomes, right? 11 years of announcements, what has it led to in terms of outcomes, right? That's where you measure.
The government has been reasonably successful on infrastructure. For example, you cannot deny there's been a massive infrastructure
Let me
push.
quote the economic survey on infrastructure.
Yes.
Right? Last year's economic survey said, infrastructure without reforms is concrete without consequence. So they have done a lot of infrastructure growth.
The cost of India has come down to below 8% of GDP.
So,
how did that happen? It used to be in double digits, well into double digits.
Economic survey of this government
You are
has said
randomly
that
picking up one sentence.
No.
Yeah, it's not
It's not that.
picture.
See, the concrete without consequence, what is happening is a lot of capital investment is happening. For example, metros are being constructed in Nagpur, in Lucknow. How many people are using those metros? Why are they not using the metros? Right? So the problem is...
But really, the question is, it's not about how many are using or not using. The fact is that there is a web which is being established, keeping in mind that this is perhaps the base that is being created to make it more attractive.
It is not followed up with reforms on the governance front. You can't just build infrastructure.
GST reforms were reforms.
No. I'm talking about infrastructure. For example, you're talking about infrastructure, right? Now, why are metros not being used? Because the last mile connectivity is broken in our cities. What is the, for example, in Gurgaon, you have a triple engine Sarkar. What is the use of a triple engine Sarkar if you're not able to fix governance at the last
Come in, Shahzad, respond to that.
Rajdeep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Rajdeep, please be charitable to me. These are the people who used to have half kilometer. Be more charitable then. This is the government of UPA which constructed half kilometer of metro line per month. We have exceeded that by 6 kilometers per month. 5 cities to now 25 cities metro connectivity is there. They oppose Mumbai Metro in the name of RA Forest, even though the carbon footprint of people traveling on the metro would be much better than the forest entire thing, and it has been clarified. And these people are now lecturing us about last mile connectivity. Anyway, then see the manner in which they get away with their lies. They spoke about outcome. Bhai, Garibi Hatao was a nara. We take out 25 crore people from Garibi and we made it into Niyat. We gave 4.5 crore people the houses, Pakka Awas. We have given 10 crore people tap water connection, 10 crore people toilet connection. We have given 10 crore people Ujjwala gas cylinder, 50 crore people Ayushman Bharat cover. What did you do except for giving the nara? You gave outlay, we gave outcome. Thirdly, Maria, see, you are quoting the data of Karnataka. Let me clarify to you, not because I am a proud Maharashtrian. Maharashtra has been number one. You should see the whole year figure of FDI. You are quoting only Q1 of financial year, and there Karnataka is slightly ahead of Maharashtra, but in the entire year Maharashtra is ahead. And also, so don't quote quarterly figure and then say that this is a whole year figure. Maharashtra is much ahead, but this is Team India
Karnataka. As Rajdeep was pointing out, even at that time the picture was
exactly. So yes, Maria, I know. Maria, please let me complete. That's why I'm saying that Karnataka has been number 2 right from 2018 onwards. So it's not a new achievement. It is a Team India spirit. Where was Congress Party when German Chancellor came to Bengaluru? They were receiving that Rahul Baba. And fourthly, I want to just say that now Rajdeep was talking about the reform process and all these opening up this sector, that sector. Ask Mr. Congress spokesperson, does he support Labour Code reform? Rajdeep, ask him.
Okay, let me
Ask him, does he
him.
support the labour code reform?
As I said, we didn't want to make this a point, but a quick answer to that. The labour code reform, do your governments fully support it or not?
See, what we support is real wage growth, right? Are people of India having a real wage?
You gave 10% inflation.
No. Is money reaching the pockets?
If I speak to industry, they say that two great concerns are labour and land.
Right.
Right?
So,
when the government goes in for a
land.
labour code reform, do you support it or not?
See, we have made a stand clear on the labor codes is that you've increased the...
What is it?
You know? No. What? You've increased it to 12 hours now, right? Which is wrong.
He's prevaricating.
Now, but the main point is, you've done all these reforms, what are the outcomes?
Okay.
Now,
real question.
One moment.
No.
In fact, a resident of Lucknow has just sent me a message, Varun, saying that Lucknow metros are choco-block.
See,
so that was also a response to say that infrastructure is being created, not being used.
Look at Nagpur. Look at Ahmedabad. The point is not...
Nothing has been built. It's better not to build.
You know, there are three issues.
This is not the hill to die on, I can assure you.
There were three issues.
Don't build infrastructure, it's the wrong hill to die on.
A leading global economist who tracks India, we met in Davos. He said if he had to give India a recipe for the future, he said India needs to focus on three things. One, rural productivity. Two, urban governance. And three, skilling. And he mentioned skilling very emphatically, and he gave the example of tourism. He said the number of tourists, for example, in a country like Switzerland are multiple times what come in a subcontinental size like India, and it makes a dramatic difference to the scale of the economy. Now, skilling has been one area where, just like infrastructure has been a strength of the Modi government, there have been questions over whether enough has been done for skilling.
The latest CAG report, for example.
The CAG report points out, and look, again, this is also, states also have to pull their weight. This is not just about the center. Different states are showing different levels of skilling for their... But these are the issues that need to be tackled. Now, the budget comes along. Should the vision statement say what this global economist said, that these are my three priorities for the next 10 years? Rural productivity, urban governance and skilling. I will commit myself for the next 10 years to it.
On tourism, I'll just add one thing, Rajdeep. Now, one of the reasons why India has been really lagging in tourism is there's been just lack of air connectivity to the country. Direct flights are not there. Even today, we don't have a fully functional airline which is connecting Indian cities and Indian capital to other tourist hubs across the world. So people want to have those access points.
There aren't enough hotel rooms to accommodate Indians traveling.
It's a supply side problem.
When I ask a hotelier about that, they say there are still far too many regulatory compliances that they've got to go
through. The government has to solve.
So the regulatory cholesterol, which we keep speaking about, can the budget so-called vision statement in part 2 include this?
You know, in February 2014,
yes,
I was at a FICCI National Executive Committee meeting in Ahmedabad, where the Chief Minister of that state, Mr. Narendra Modi, chose to speak for 1 hour addressing the FICCI National Executive Committee on tourism as a priority sector for the Indian economy and how he would in fact use tourism to generate employment. I was totally impressed. After his talk, I actually went up to him and complimented him. That is February 2014 in Ahmedabad. We are now in 2026. What have we done for tourism? And it's states and center. But point is, there are all these issues about connectivity, about hotels, about talent.
Now, I'm only asking this because the belief is, as Part B earlier used to be about tax, about indirect taxes, Part 2 this time is going to be a vision statement, is what we are being told as of now of the budget. Should the vision statement be very clear about what are the things that we are going to make, you know, not just catchword, not just Skill India, Stand Up India, not that. Actually, how are you going to translate these words into action, execute them with a clear roadmap? Isn't that what you want? Rather than handouts here, you know, for some scheme or the other.
Part B will be mostly about the change in the proposed customs framework and tariff.
Global opportunity.
So is this a big opportunity for that customs duty reform?
Well, you can open up your sectors. That is the only way you will sort of bring in the competition and sort of have companies come in and invest. The problem with the point that you made about agriculture, there's a simple data point, which is that nearly 50% of the workforce depends on 1/6 of the national income. Agriculture accounts for about 16% of GDP, and over 500 million people depend on that. Now, unless you change that, you will never. So we are number 4 in the size of the economy, number 140 in per capita income, because the mass is not as rich.
Another word that's going to likely to be used is defense. There's a general belief post Operation Sindoor that the government would invest more on military spending. Maria, you have the numbers.
Yes, so just look at the defense military spending vis-a-vis our neighboring countries, which have been a matter of major concern for us, particularly China and Pakistan. The China defense budget has been going up substantially. As far as India is concerned, that has been largely around a straight graph, not much of the expenditure going up, that spending on defense military capability going up. This is where the sense is that the government could announce some major spending in terms of purchasing newer capabilities, because particularly after Operation Sindoor. Another area, Rajdeep, as we have been talking about, this is with regards to GRAMG, the Manrega, which has been renamed. And can that be a point of contention between the opposition and the government? The Manrega funds released, if you look at it, in 2024, that was the highest at 105.3k crores. It did go down, not really significantly, a little to 104.3k crores. Now it seems that this is where the government could increase that number. So, Shankar, come in on particularly with regards to the defense expenditure or defense spending. Is there a sense that this could go up?
More important thing would be...
one by one, let Shankar finish first, yes.
More important thing would be, for a change, we are actually exporting our defense production.
That's a massive shift.
And
that's a massive shift.
Last month, Turkey had a defense exposition in Africa, selling defense equipment to all the African countries. We've had a footprint in Africa much longer than Turkey could have thought of. So why aren't we hosting defense exposition either in India or in Africa or to the other countries? We have a huge potential after the creation of the factories for small arms, for the
in
Uttar Pradesh, in the drone capacity that we are building. All of these are bulletproof vests. We have built capacities in these areas, and we should sort of present it to the world and say that this is what we have to sell. You have to market and sell your potential.
Make in India.
Yes.
No. Sorry. This is one subject where I have been working on defense. I've written papers, several papers. I work for a defense think tank. Let me tell you one thing. There is a systematic pattern that after every major war, this defense expenditure goes up. 62, 65, 71, 98, right? So when you say post-Operation Sindoor, that's a wrong way of looking at defense spending. What many of us have been demanding is a 5-year plan for defense. And what a lot of private companies today are demanding is assured purchase of whatever they produce. Now, in defense, it is a unique industry in which there's only one customer, which is the government of India. And unless the government of India tells a private company that over the next 5 years, I will buy X amount of guns or rockets or whatever, the private company will not produce. And those are the commitments the government is still not making. I can tell you from my knowledge.
True.
So therefore, you need a reform in the way in which defense spending is done, in the way in which procurement is done, in the way in which we bring in private sector into defense manufacturing. Unless you address that issue at home, exports is only a byproduct. You cannot develop a defense industry based on exports.
You want a quick response to that?
So while we wait for this to happen, the acquisition process in Ministry of Defense has been a bugbear all the way from Lakshman Joshi till now. In 2002, I had done some work with him. So from then to now. So while we wait for it, if there is an opportunity to use the capacity that we are building to provide arms, what is China doing? What is Turkey doing? What is India doing? What was Iran doing till recently? It was selling to the Europeans.
I have 2 more guests joining us, and we've got about 10 odd minutes before the finance minister comes to Parliament. Punita Sinha joins us. She's an independent director on several companies, global investor for years. Thank you very much, Punita, for joining us. Also joining us is R. Mukundan, President Designate CI, Managing Director, CEO, Tata Chemicals. I want to put to you both my bugbear, which is the weak private investment despite years of policy push, Mr. Mukundan. Since 2019, we've had sharp corporate tax cuts, record capex on roads and ports, PLI subsidies, higher IT exemptions, GST cuts, yet private corporate investment is still below 2019 levels. What more do you expect the FM to do to boost private investment?
Thank you. Actually, I came only prepared for one issue which I think we will all need to address, which is the private sector investment. I think you rightly pointed out, government has done a lot of heavy lifting. And this point about private sector investment lagging, I think was okay till about 2 years ago. But last 2 years, actually, it has caught up. As the capacity utilization of units have increased to about 75 to 80 odd %, the capex has started to kick in. I can give you some data which we have got from the latest capex pulse, which we got from our members, and we have tabulated them project by project. Year 26, 17,000 private sector projects are going to be coming on stream worth 9 lakh crores. 27, we're going to have 900 private sector projects coming on stream of 7 lakh crores. 11 large projects account for rupees 475,000 crores, and each one of these projects is 20,000 crore or more, largely in renewable energy, in electronics, in steel, in chemicals. And really, 26, 27, if you add, 2,600 private sector projects are coming on stream of 16 lakh crore, which is some of the first two figures I said. So there's been about 30% growth in capex. 92% of all new capex which is coming on stream, approximately of 10 lakh crore, is actually from private sector now. So really, I think private sector has started to come in. What we need to do is to do two things which are the next step of changes which we need to bring. One is to continue to focus on factor cost, which is making sure the power cost and the logistic cost remains the focus. I think these are two big elements. And in the power sector, I think one of the key things we are saying is to make sure our discoms are made more viable. Privatization is a big issue there. I think we need to address that big issue. Having said that, I think the second piece is about building forward from where we are. We have had a great success, for example, in electronics, and I think the PLI scheme has been a big success. But the next step in electronics is going to be building an entire component base. Globally, when you look at this component base, they come within 10 square kilometers of each other from the main assembly unit. So we need large-scale parks and a very targeted component level, let's say, a PLI sort of a scheme to keep the momentum up and actually deepen the exports. When I say deepen the exports, the final product export number will be...
Yeah, Shankar, you had a question. Go ahead.
Hi, Mukundan. Just a quick question. I can see that these projects are coming on stream, which means that these investments have happened in the past, whatever. But I like the point that you made about components in automobile, components in electronics. The components in electronics has to come through only when we sort of invest in technology, R&D, right? What is our percentage of private sector investment in technology?
Yeah. So I think you raise a very different point, which is about R&D and technology investment. I think private sector certainly needs to boost that up. I think that's also been our focus. I think this RDIF fund which government has created, which is getting rolled out this year, I think will give a big boost. I think I'm pretty sure that many companies will take benefit of that. These are long-term funds being given on a 50-year basis with no interest, and companies can use that